All right, welcome back into the Section YY8 podcast. Negative Niece, joined by Harb, Day Vol. This is the final podcast of the regular season for football 2023. Vols go out on a good note, destroying pitiful Vanderbilt, 48-24. Really wasn't even that close. I was kind of don't take this the wrong way, but I had a late invite, fourth quarter up to the skybox. Got up there and there was like 3-4 minutes to go. And I was secretly rooting for Vanderbilt's defense to keep Tennessee out of the end zone because I took Vandy plus 26.5. Tennessee kicks a field goal. Why? I guess they were just letting Campbell kick to end his career. Yeah. And Tennessee wins by 24 and Vandy covers. So that's the only good thing Vandy did yesterday was cover for. Let's see, Griff picked him and I picked him, so there you go. But Vanderbilt's pitiful. I tell you what, I haven't been, and we'll talk about the game and what happened here in a minute, but I haven't been that mad at a football game in a long time when all that ruckus was going on the field. I hate Vanderbilt. I've said this on here before. Vanderbilt's one of those schools that when I was growing up, I mean, they're pitiful now. They were always pitiful back then. But it was the old timers. They want to beat Alabama, obviously, and the other two are Kentucky and Vanderbilt. And so I kind of grew up in that era where I was taught to hate Alabama, hate Kentucky, and hate Vanderbilt. And I got so redneck mad yesterday when that was going on the field. I was pissed. And I can't stand Vanderbilt. I hate them. I hate everything that they're about. They're pitiful. They do. I chanted Vandy sucks because they suck. They suck at everything except baseball. But they got pretty wild out there on the field there for a minute. And really, it looked like I went back and watched it. I fast forwarded through the game when I got home. I'm battling a sore throat today. But it looked like they either didn't blow the whistle or no one could hear it because at that point, you two were there. It was extremely loud in that stadium during that sequence
it was loud.
Of plays. It was as loud as it's been all year long, which shout out to Vol Nation. Place was sold out after back-to-back disappointing games against Missouri and Georgia. And that place was packed. There was a lot of students there. I said last week it'd be interesting to see how many were there, and there was a ton of them there. It was full for the most part, but that place was as loud as it's been all year. But yeah, that got a little hairy there for a few minutes there right before the end of the first half. Were you mad, Harbin? Were you triggered like you were at the tailgate earlier in the day?
I was not triggered. That's fake news.
You were triggered at the tailgate.
Not as triggered as you want to make it out to be. You know, y'all like firing me up, and that's fine. But I actually didn't really catch what happened before all the ruckus started, and then I went and watched it back. Like you said, I don't know if they actually blew the whistle or not, but on that play, it felt like Vandy's quarterback thought the play was dead, and obviously our defense did not. So chalk that up to a misunderstanding. Vandy being pissed, rightfully so, but they should have been mad at the referees and not us.
Yeah.
Because that play probably should have been blown dead, but I don't think it was.
It sounded like the first one was blown dead and Tennessee just didn't hear it. The second one, you don't really hear a whistle until way after the play. At least I couldn't on my TV, but I don't know. It was
you definitely didn't hear a whistle in the stadium.
I didn't hear one.
It was actually really loud. I was very impressed.
Yeah,
that third down, it was crazy. I was like, "Are we playing? Who are we playing?"
I'll try to put. I've actually videoed that sequence. I was just videoing. I like to video one random play when we're on defense, and just so happens I videoed that one. So I'll see if I can get it into the video part of this podcast. But yeah, I thought it was extremely loud, but kudos to Vol fans for showing up. I didn't know what to expect because the parking lot wasn't very full. But got to the stadium and walked in. I was like, wow, this place is pretty much full. So yeah, it was a great day for football, great weather. Wasn't too hot, wasn't too cold. It was perfect, I thought. But and shout out to everybody real quick before we get into the game. Had a better than expected turnout, Harbin, at the tailgate, and had some new folks show up. I won't mention any names, but there were some new folks came in and hung out with us pregame, and we had a good time. But appreciate everybody coming out this year. We had a blast all year long. I'll put some pictures up in the video part of this on YouTube. But yeah, it was a great Saturday. Had some burgers, chocolate milk, some Dr.
What?
Pepper,
What?
Coca-Cola.
What?
It was great. But what was your all's thoughts on the game? Tennessee pretty much a little bit of a slow start in the first quarter, but not really. But I thought Joe Milton had his best game besides the Orange Bowl as a Vol. Statistically, he had his best game ever here.
Yeah,
I think he's the first
sure.
quarterback since Jonathan Crompton, I read, in 2009 to have 6 total touchdowns in a game. I'll have to look. I'll try to pull those stats up while y'all are giving your thoughts. But 6 total touchdowns for Joe, 4 through the air, 2 on the ground. He made some real, and I know it's against Vandy. Come on, but still, that first touchdown pass, Day to Keaton over the middle.
That was
Go back
really
and watch
good.
it on tape. I didn't appreciate it live like I did when I saw it on TV again, but I was thinking back to like, what a throw and catch that was.
It was very impressive.
That's what's frustrating about watching Joe Milton play, though. I've said this all year long. I was telling somebody at the tailgate yesterday, when you watch that guy play football, like throw a football and walk out on the field, you're like, God, this guy's got to be one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the nation. He's got great arm talent. He throws for the most part, a pretty football, a good football. He just something's not ever clicked where he just can't put it together consistently. But yesterday, I thought he was outstanding.
He was.
I say it was outstanding outside of he should have ran the ball 2 or 3 times.
Yes.
And he just wanted to throw it. Other than that, I mean, that's nitpicking. But he had a really good day.
I would give him an A- to an A yesterday. Really the whole team. There's a few things that, didn't look great, but for the most part, we went out and we handled business and took care of it, and we took care of what was in front of us, and now we're more than likely headed to Florida and playing a Drake Malis, North Carolina in a bowl game.
I mentioned Jonathan Crompton earlier. Memphis State game 2009. Crompton was 21 of 27, 331 yards, 5 touchdowns through the air, and he also rushed the ball 3 times for 5 yards, 1 touchdown. So 6 total touchdowns. Tennessee won that game 56-28, led by Lane Kiffin.
You're telling me Tyler Bray never had 6 touchdowns?
That was the stat I was reading on the X earlier, so it could be fake news, but there wasn't a community note below it. So
I'm pretty sure Tennessee tweeted that out too.
Take that for what it's worth. There was no community note, so I'll keep looking through the record books here while we're recording it, see if I can find anything. How about that, Harbin?
Fair enough.
Any thoughts about the game yesterday? I know we had a lot of guys that did not participate in senior day that could have. 2 notables for me, Cooper Mays and Javonte Spraggins, did not go through senior day activities. There were several others. I'm trying to find the list. I guess I sent it to you all last night.
Matthew Solansky.
Dane Davis did not go through. He was another one. I sent it
Slaughter.
somewhere. Danico Slaughter did not go through. Tamarian McDonald did not go through senior day. There were
McDonald.
several that did not go through.
And even if they went through, that doesn't really mean anything.
It doesn't. I mean, Brew McCoy went through it. But there's an opportunity for him to come back. I don't know if he will or not, but I mean, he can
It's all
come
going to be
back.
the feedback he gets from the NFL. They're going to be like, hey, you got to prove it that you can move on this leg. You know, we know what you did before, but that's a pretty significant injury. They may want to see him do it another year. I don't know.
True.
I have no clue.
Jackson Lampley, Keenan Pilley were two others that did not go through.
One.
Pilley is a big one. To have him back. The other two big ones for me are, well, three too. I mean, Davis, Spraggins, and Mays on the offensive line. Because we talked a couple weeks ago on here about, not that we're thin as far as numbers go, we just don't have a lot of playing time experience behind some of these guys. And it would be good to kind of fill that year that we're missing in recruiting because of the Pruitt stuff where all those guys left, to have those guys back. So, if they decide to come back, I think it would really help this football team's future going forward in future years, because it allows them to build up another year's worth of depth, where otherwise, if say all these guys leave, we're going to be starting a really young football team next year. I mean, even on offense, you're going to lose Keaton at wide receiver. So you've got two freshmen that have played, and the other freshmen haven't really played at all. Running back, you could lose. You could lose Wright. I don't know if he'll go pro or not. I think he's gone.
I think he will. Yeah, he should. I mean,
Jabari Small is gone, and
he can come back, but he went through senior day.
True, he can. And then you've got Sampson, who supposedly posted something on Instagram with a Drake song about going home. I don't know what it was called.
What's that money?
He said he was going home, and he's from Baton Rouge.
Take that for what it's worth. I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of that stuff's for clicks, but if I was him, I would be frustrated too. I don't remember him being out there yesterday. I mean, I don't get it.
He's out there at the end. They were trying to get Wright 1,000. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
it's senior day. They're going to get Small out there and let him run a little bit.
I feel like the running back rotations this year have been really weird, though. I mean, it's like I feel like Sampson should have been out there more often than he was. I don't know why they didn't.
He took one less snap than Wright
yesterday.
Somebody broke just on the year.
Really?
Yeah.
It just didn't feel like he was out there that much, I guess. But
he didn't run the ball as much, but catching the ball out of the backfield, he's been the guy. Think of that Kentucky game. I mean, it was his game at the end.
Yeah, he won the game.
But he didn't run the ball a ton. He was going 8 yards and turning around and catching it and taking off.
I mean, he'll be the guy in the backfield next year. There's no doubt about it if he stays.
I mean,
but
he's pulling a Wright. Let's be honest. He saw what Wright did. He got paid. I'm not saying one way or the other. I mean, if he leaves, you get a portal running back, or whoever you got on roster, you put them as one.
So, real quickly, how would you all rate this season? I was thinking about this. We cleaned out the skybox today. They're getting ready to renovate them this off season, and on the way back, I had a lot of time to think. I was listening to the Titans on the radio, and between poor offensive play and I don't know who's the color analyst with Mike Keith. I like the guy. He's great, but he moaned and complained about the officiating all day long. I didn't get to watch the game, but it sounded like it was poorly officiated. But I was thinking on the way home, like, how would we rate this season? I mean, you look at it on paper, 8-4 after going 11-2 last year was a little bit of a disappointment, and it probably is, because we probably should have been at least 9-3. But I think we left some stuff out there on the table, and we had some games that maybe were winnable that we didn't take advantage of, like Alabama and Florida. But overall, I'm not disappointed in the season. I mean, I just look at it 3 years ago or 4 seasons ago now, we were 3-7 and we were firing a coach and there was riots on campus. And to be where we're at right now, I feel like Heupel's done a good job of kind of steadying the ship and keeping it, pointed straight. Next couple of years are going to be big for him in this program. Can they take that next step? Like I've talked about getting into tier A. They've got some work to do if they want to do that. I don't see that happening next year, but over the next 2 to 3 years, they've got an opportunity with some talent they brought in. If they can develop it, bring it along, get it to fit in their system, they can do that. But what was your thoughts on the season as a whole this year? I'll start with Harbin.
Letter grade, I'm somewhere between C and C minus is somewhere where I'm at, just to be 100% honest with you. I think most level-headed individuals expected 8-4, 9-3. We did get 8-4, but considering how we lost 2 of those games against rivals, it stings a little bit. But the reason that I want to lean C and not C minus is you go on the road and you beat Kentucky, you take care of business there, and you beat A&M at home. So the wheels never fell completely off. But the Florida and Missouri losses, I was really hurt just as a whole. But overall, in a bridge year, 8-4, finishing third in the SEC in the East, can't be too terribly mad at it. And obviously, it's totally fine if you're not happy with it. So that's why I'd lean C or C minus. For argument's sake, I'll go C minus because I think 9-3 was kind of the benchmark. Now I think most of us said the 8-4 was the floor.
We did back that first episode. We said eight wins is the floor for this program now. I was trying to find a stat, and I'll let Davey go ahead and give his. But what do you think about the year total season?
Total season, you get a B minus. I might be nicer. You didn't know Missouri was going to be as good as they are. Still, yeah, they're good. I don't know if they're as good as they're a good team. They beat you. You were in that game, and you just let it unravel on you. You did a lot of stuff, stupid stuff. Georgia just flat out better than you. Bama, you settled because you were up. Florida, you did the typical Florida thing. I mean, I wasn't on the first episode. I would have said this team's floor was 7, and their ceiling was 10. In 10, everything had to go right, and of course, everything didn't go right. You didn't have your starting center for 3 games. I think that affected it big time because they didn't get their flow until I would say the Kentucky game is when they started looking like they found a flow, and then it just fell apart there for a little bit. But I mean, 8 is the floor, I think, now with Heupel. But I think with that team, 7 was the floor because I could have saw them going and squandering another road game. Not that Kentucky ever beats us, but just the way our road woes have been. And I don't think the quarterback was dynamic enough to win you those extra games, and he didn't, type of deal. Like Hooker found a way to win those 2 games to get you 10. I mean, you still got a chance at 9. When's the last time we went 11 wins and 9 wins, and now you're upset you have a chance for a 9-win season? I mean, I kind of like that because Keaton said it. He said, this is not what we wanted. It's like, we want to compete for championships. We want to, SEC, national. 8-4 is not what we want. So that's what you want to hear as a fan because they're not satisfied. They probably give themselves a C, I would say. But where the program was 3 years ago to today, I mean, it's a B minus season because you shouldn't have had last year's results. You really shouldn't have. But the team was good enough to get them. They just shouldn't have had them that early, type of deal.
Yeah. Well, I agree. It really, Heupel was kind of a victim of his own success in this program, going 11-2 last year, winning the Orange Bowl. I remember sitting down there at I still call it Joe Robbie Stadium, Hard Rock Stadium there in Miami, and they were going through the trophy ceremony, and I was like, what if we like our Georgia and Alabama, and something just clicks out of nowhere right here, and we just do this every year from here on out. And I kind of had to like pump the brakes a little bit, because when you think about where we're at and the things we're facing as far as scholarship reductions, and at that time we didn't know what the outcome of the NCAA investigation was going to be, so I had to kind of pump the brakes, say, hold on a minute, we're losing all this talent, we're kind of starting over again next year. It could be up and down just a little bit, but that thought kind of ran through my mind there after that game there in the Orange Bowl. But I would give this team this year a C, just because I would have given it a B. But I felt like there was 2 games that really chapped my rear end. And that was the Florida game, who they ended up 5-7. And I know we struggled down there and against that program as a whole. But they needed to go down there. We said it all leading up to that game. That was a game we needed to win, and we didn't. And the Alabama game too. I mean, we went down there and pretty much dominated the first half, led 20-7 at halftime. Could have been a lot worse. And we just absolutely laid an egg in the second half. And that was 2 games that, in the Missouri game, we were never competitive in. But those 2 games really, I guess, left a sour taste in my mouth. Just losing those games the way we did, and you had an opportunity to win those games. You got a program like where we're at right now. If you want to take that next step, like I keep talking about, you got to win those football games. You got to find a way to do it, and we just didn't. And until they do that and figure out a way, they're not going to be in that upper tier of this conference, and that's going to get it even tougher with Oklahoma and Texas coming in. But I would give this team a C. I thought there were some good moments. Beating A&M at home when the offense wasn't playing well was awesome. Pounding South Carolina and Spencer Rattler and Shane Beamer at home was awesome. The win yesterday against Vandy, when you hadn't played good at all in 2 weeks. I know it's against a pitiful Vandy team, but that was awesome to see. And then go out on a good note. But 8-4, I would give it a C, because I just felt like they left some stuff on the table, and it could have easily been 10-2, could have easily been 9-3. But you could look at some of these games, it could have been 7-5 or 6-6. They could have easily lost that Texas A&M game earlier in the season. That game could have gone either way. Tennessee, I talk about complimentary football on here a lot. They played complimentary football that day. Special teams, defense and special teams picked up the offense and helped them win that football game. But the Kentucky game, we could have lost that. So there was 2 games there we could have lost. Is Vanderbilt worse than Virginia was at the start? Which one of those 2 teams is worse?
I think Vanderbilt's worse.
God, they're bad.
Our thing with Vanderbilt is, I mean, we were playing walk-ons and still made them look silly.
Yeah. I don't know.
Virginia was bad. We knocked their quarterback out so quick that they got shell-shocked. I mean, we were hitting them hard, and they didn't know how to respond to that.
So where do y'all we'll talk about bowls later on before Christmas. Hard, where do you think we go to a bowl game? Is it Jacksonville, you think?
Yeah, Gator Bowl, North Carolina. I don't know if that changes since North Carolina got clapped against North Carolina State this weekend. But that was all the projections that I saw going into this week. It may change. Another one that we saw a little bit was Iowa. I just don't see an 8-4 Tennessee team going against a more than likely 10-3 Iowa team.
But you got to remember, Iowa hasn't beat anybody.
Mm-hmm.
That's also true. And it may be wishful thinking just because I cannot get excited for us playing Iowa, truthfully.
No, I can't either. But they haven't. I mean, they view that stuff like the people that pick those bowls. They're like, they might have won 10, but they didn't win a lot.
Well, I think that they look at it too. They try to figure out who's going to travel to the games, and what are the good matchups. It's not just about where you finish. I mean, it kind of is, but it's not.
Let's look. We're 6th overall in the SEC. which doesn't sound awesome. We were second overall last year. If we're saying there's no division. So I mean, you drop down quite a bit, but only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams finished 500 or above in the SEC standings, which is wild. And one of them fired their coach.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, what about Stoops pulling a Rick Barnes?
I don't think he pulled a Rick Barnes. I think he got Shiano'd. That's all I think.
I mean, I think I texted you all last night. I said he may be trying to get himself a little bit of a raise, and I don't know.
He didn't get nothing.
Not, but
nothing.
He didn't get anything.
Nothing. Not at all.
They've not announced anything.
Well, no. Now the report is that it's going to be Mike Elko.
Yes.
Yeah. So Mike Elko.
Look, I'm not saying, oh, what's his face was the greatest thing ever or was the right guy for the job, but you're firing this dude and paying him upwards of $80 million to go get somebody that's done a lot less. It don't make sense. I don't get this business.
I mean, it's hard to believe that Stoops or Elko were in the top 3 of who they called. Maybe not even top 5, truthfully. I would assume that they reached out to Dan Lanning. I'm assuming that he probably didn't even pick up the damn phone.
I would. Why would you leave Oregon?
They got the money too.
I mean, that's Oregon and Texas A&M.
I mean, I know they don't got oil money, but they got.
But Oregon and
kind of
Texas
money
A&M
comes into college athletics.
Oregon and Texas A&M though are top 15 programs. I mean, what's the difference? Like, why? That's a lateral move. Probably not even lateral at this point.
I don't think. Texas A&M, they've never done anything.
No, they're kind of like. I mean, they have been an 7 to 9 win football program for my lifetime, and sometimes not even that. But they're in Texas. Do everything bigger in Texas, but I don't know. I saw some of these names. Another one I saw this afternoon, Harbin, was Indiana fired their coach, and the groomers have fired up.
Oh, boy.
John Gruden to Indiana.
There is in my opinion, a 0% chance he gets up off his couch to go
to Indiana.
Right.
Why Indiana?
I'm going to be dead ass honest with you. I think somebody calls him the NFL soon after all the stuff came out with the Raiders, and I really don't think he takes a college job, even if it's a high profile job. Which
I find it hard for him to take.
And Oregon State's coach, they got blown out by Oregon on Friday night, and yesterday it was announced officially that he is going to Michigan State. So Oregon State not only lost their final Civil War game against Oregon, and they're technically still in the Pac-12 or the Pac-2 now, but now they're looking for a coach. The hits just keep on coming for the Beavers. Sad. Love their logo.
I mean, it is Oregon State.
True. I think I told you all that. I stood when we went to Oregon 10 years ago for the Tennessee-Oregon game. We went over to Corvallis, and me and my dad and my uncle walked right out into the middle of Reser Stadium there at Oregon State, and the gate was wide open, and we were standing at midfield. I got pictures. And this Division II football team walks in, and my dad's like, "Oh gosh, we better get out of here." And me and my uncle are like, "No, they don't." And one of the coaches come up to me. I can't remember the guy's name to save my life. Of course, it's 10 years ago, and we all had Tennessee gear on. And he said, "Oh, you guys are from Knoxville?" And we were like, "Yeah." And he goes, "I used to coach at a little small school outside of Knoxville, Carson Newman." I was like, "Really?" I live like 15 minutes from there. And he was like, "No way." I can't remember. He was a young guy. He was like a GA or something like that. But I don't even remember the school that was in there. But they were playing a game there on Saturday because Oregon State was out of town that weekend. But that was pretty cool. We just walked right in the stadium. But they've blown that stadium up. Field is still there, but they rebuilt the stadium. But little fun fact. Me and my uncle and my dad trespassed on the Reser Stadium one time. It just seemed no one cared either. So, anyways,
All right, I'm gonna go back to, grades on the year. So I guess it has to be a C when you hear it like this. It said only a handful of Power Fives finished season at 0 coach effect.
yeah, that's what I was going to read earlier. I'm glad you finally found it.
And that means the record was exactly what the recruiting versus schedule projected. So Tennessee, of course, was one of them. It's like
Who are the
Ohio
others?
State,
Who are the
Iowa,
others?
Georgia, Texas, Alabama, Maryland, Utah, West Virginia, Boston College, Arizona State, and Oklahoma State. So, I mean, I guess if that's saying, flatline, you stayed a flatline, you're C. You can't be anything better or worse.
Well, that's what FPI predicted as preseason was 8-4. I mean, so we were right on the predictions. I guess we should have read into more of that with the Florida game, but it's still disappointing that we lost that game. But you're right. That's the stat I was trying to look up earlier that I was talking about. I couldn't find it. I saw that earlier in the day, but it's right on track.
I think a lot of that is our red zone was we kicked too many field goals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you're right. Day, I know you got to go here shortly. Give us some thoughts very quickly in under 2 minutes of Tennessee basketball's trip to Maui.
Not as disappointing as most think. You showed that you could compete with two really powerful teams. You took a beating in the first game. Like both teams just beat each other up. Tennessee went and played I know Kansas lost to Marquette, but went and played a bad matchup for what I would say tired legs, where Purdue got to go play Marquette, who was more finesse, and man, they just beat them up too.
Yeah.
So it's just like, yeah, you want to win those games, but that means nothing down the road. That just means, hey, we got some guys to refocus, and you've heard that you're All-American, blah, blah, blah. Well, show up in the second half I'm not dissing Connect. He's awesome. But little things. You can fix little things here and there. Your point guard, you can tell he's been out with an ACL. He's turning the ball over. He's, hesitant on certain little moves he makes. It was nice to see Vescovi come out of his whatever that was, funk. But other than that, I mean, they're going to be fine. They'll be fine. Not worried about it.
So Day Vol had to go night Harbin, which I think you and I both want to do here at some point tonight. But Day's going to have a rough week. He has to go back to work. He was off all last week. So prayers up to Day Vol as he returns to the workforce this week. We'll be thinking about you as we also go back to work. But anyways, appreciate him coming on. Day and I have, for those that don't know, have sat together at Neyland Stadium since 2010. I was first season in YY8 was in 2009, and then Day came in 2010, and we've sat next to each other ever since. So we go back several miserable football seasons and several good seasons. More probably bad than good, but anyways, we go back a long way. So glad he's been able to come on during football season, and I'm sure he'll be on during basketball some. So he talked a little bit before he had to go about basketball, Harbin, and wanted to recap the Vols trip to Maui real quick. Vols went 1-2. Picked up a win over Syracuse last Monday, 73-56. Lost to, this is AP ranked as of last week, number 2 Purdue, 67-71. And then on Wednesday, lost to Kansas, 69
nice
to 60. So Vols went 1-2. I mean, Syracuse is not, like we said, Syracuse of old, but Purdue and Kansas, two of the best teams in the country. That Tuesday and Wednesday round of games, Harbin, Tennessee versus Purdue, Kansas versus Marquette. Marquette beat Kansas, Purdue beat Tennessee. And then the games on Wednesday, Kansas versus Tennessee, Purdue versus Marquette. It was like Final Four basketball. I was so excited sitting there watching those games this past week. It was so awesome. I mean, I know Tennessee lost, and I'm not saying that was awesome, which it's obviously not, but those, and I don't want to leave out some of the other, I mean, UCLA was there. It was so awesome, those games. I have not been that excited for basketball in November, I don't think ever. And I know Tennessee lost, but Tennessee went out there, showed they can compete with anybody in the country. And like I said on last week's show, which a lot of people obviously didn't listen because you got on social media and listened to call-in shows or any other show, and people started, here we go again, Tennessee can't score. And I get it. But basketball, for all its nuances, it can be a very simple game. You got to put the ball in the basket. And Tennessee just failed to do that. I thought offensively, if you go back and watch the game, there were some things they could have done differently to help out the scoring woes, but they were getting open shots. They just got to make those. I mean, Gainey did not shoot well. Connect vanished. Ziegler and Vescovi. I mean, Vescovi shot pretty well against Kansas, but the Syracuse and Purdue game, he was non-existent on the offensive end. He did some other things well, but it just comes down to making shots. And I think one thing this team could do a little bit better is not shoot so many threes when they get into offensive funks, which is what they did last year. And against Kansas, they shot a ton of threes. I think they ended up with 33 pointers. That's something they got to get away from that. And they got to figure a way out to get to the basket more in those situations, get to the foul line and take advantage of that there and try to get out of a shooting slump that way. But it was so frustrating to me to see people get so upset and so down in the dumps. One guy said, this is a 4 seed at best. Will not make it out of the first round. Will not even make the top 4 of the SEC. We literally lost to maybe the 2 best teams in the country. I feel like they are. And like Day said earlier, you can't put a whole lot of stock into some of these games, especially that third game. I know Kansas had to play too, but that is such a weird, you never play back-to-back nights in college basketball except in the SEC tournament or the conference tournaments. That is the only time all year you will play a back-to-back game, much less 3 in a row. NCAA tournament, there's a day off between games if you win, so you get a day to rest. There was none of that in this. It was a quick turnaround. There's no film study at all. There's no walkthrough practice. You just go up and play. It's kind of like the old AAU tournament days. You might play 2 or 3 games in a day. So I don't think these guys would use that as an excuse, and it's not, but it does affect the way the game's played, especially in that third game in the second half. You got to think these guys had played, 40, 80, 120 minutes of basketball in 3 days. So I was pleased with Tennessee going out there, and they had a chance to win all 3 games. They tied with Kansas at halftime, was right there with Purdue at halftime, and just let it slip away at the end. But I thought it was a great trip for Tennessee, and I'm still just as excited about this season as I was before they went out there. And anyone who's not is just not very smart and not basketball smart. I'll just say it.
Yeah, I agree. Good win against Syracuse. Obviously, we're the better team in that matchup. We let them hang around for about 30 minutes, and then we closed it out like good teams do, and we ended up, we went by 17, something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, I was completely pleased with that game. And to be honest with you, I wasn't really upset at all with the Purdue game. I thought we played well enough to win that game. Unfortunately, it became a ref show. Not saying that they were bad for us. It was just bad the whole game. As an officiating staff, having a top 10 matchup, knowing that it's arguably the 2 most physical teams in the country, I don't know why you go out there and decide that you're just going to call every single little ticky-tack thing. And it was an extremely physical game, but it got bogged down by the referees. There's a combined 78 free throws shot in that game
It is awful.
in 40 minutes. That's unheard of. That is the fun fact. That is a record, obviously, for the Rick Barnes era for combined free throws. The previous record was 75. I forgot what the game was. My old boy used to be on the coaching staff. He posted that. It was a couple years ago, I think. But I thought we played well in that game. And like you said, it had big game feel to it, like Elite Eight, Final Four type. I was slightly up. I did get a little upset with the Kansas game though, because we got up pretty big, or we got up 8 in the first half.
This is 7 or 8, yes.
Yeah, we got up pretty decent in the first half. Let them go on a run, and it was tied at halftime. We played well enough to be up 7 or 8 at halftime, and ultimately, it's kind of what cost us. We let them go on one more run in the second half, and they got up about 8 or 10, whatever it was. They ended up winning by 9. So obviously, it's kind of funny because like you want to pull away, you want to pull takeaways from this game, like going into conference play and going into the North Carolina matchups, the Illinois matchups. But you also got to take it with a grain of salt because it was against the AP ranked number 1 and number 2 teams. So if you go 0-2 in those games, you're disappointed going 0-2, but also dummy math, you still could be the 3rd best team in the country, you know? So that part's tough. I think Purdue is better than Kansas, personally. That's my opinion of the week. Also, Marquette is a wagon.
Yeah.
What they did to Kansas was impressive. But I don't know if I said it on the podcast last week. I know I said it in the group message. I knew shooting was going to be a struggle in this tournament because normally in these Thanksgiving tournaments, or at least in the Maui, just because it's a funky gym, the long range shooting numbers are going to be lower than normal, which is expected. I mean, you're on a 5 to 6 hour time difference. It's a much smaller gym than what you're used to. It's early in the season. It's going to happen. And against Purdue, we shot what was it? Shot 8 for 30 from 3, 26%. They shot 4 of 15. That wasn't the issue in that game. In the Kansas game, I think we shot a little bit better in that one.
We were 9 of 33 from 3-point range.
We were 9 of 33, so pretty much on par. We just shoot a lot more threes than other teams do. So you're potentially going to run into a game that you lose that you should have won just because ball's not going in.
You could tell that we shot a lot of jump shots in that Kansas game because we only shot 8 free throws. We were 7 of 8 from the free throw line. Kansas shot 22 free throws that game. Not that they were good from the line. They were 11 of 22, but they got 4 more points from the foul line than we did. And they also shot, they were 4 of 12 from 3-point range. So their shooting numbers weren't that great, but I felt like toward the last 5 minutes of the game, we kind of shot ourselves out of the game in that Kansas game by shooting so many threes. But I think, and they weren't bad shots. They were open. They just couldn't make them. They just could not get the ball to go in the basket.
I will say, here's another big takeaway, in my opinion. I'm going to go ahead and nickname it the Jordan Gainey roller coaster. For Celtics fans out there, I think we've got at least a few that watch, and now Memphis Grizzly fans, I know we got at least one back-to-back weeks for a shout-out for Luke Scalf.
There you go.
It's going to be a lot like the Marcus Smart roller coaster the Celtics fans went through for a decade and what Memphis fans are going to go through now. Marcus Smart was the biggest no-yes guy in NBA history, in my opinion. He'd pull up a shot and you'd be like, what are you doing? And it'd go in. We went through a little bit of that with Gainey this past weekend. He'd make a shot and then he'd get shot happy. And there was a couple that I was like, why are you shooting that? and then one or two of them would go in. You're like, okay, that's a good shot, you know. I would like him to facilitate it a little bit more. Because where did he transfer from? Was it upstate or
USC Upstate and Spartanburg?
Yeah, yeah. So he still used to being the man, which is not a bad thing. I love that mindset. We've got a few of those guys on the team this year, but it's gonna take time to build the chemistry to where some of these guys realize like, hey, I'm not the guy anymore. And it's good to have about 4 or 5 of those guys, which we do. But some of them are eventually gonna figure out, hey, my teammates are a lot better than they were last year. I'll be able to rely on them, so I'm not too worried about it. But I am a big fan of Gainey. He's got some game to him, and I love how aggressive he is because I think we've lacked that over the last couple of years. We've lacked guys that aren't afraid to take a big shot when we're down a couple points. You know, get aggressive. You know, trust their skill set. So for that reason, I'm a big fan. Also, Vescovi looked a little slow until the Kansas game. Not really putting a whole lot of stock into that. He's going to be just fine this season. I'm going to chalk a good amount of that up from him being away from the team. His grandmother passed away. You know, I don't really think his head was fully into it. But
he missed like 2 weeks. I mean, right. and that I wanted to, while you brought it up, there's a lot of people, some listeners of this show have been critical of Zakai Ziegler, and he needs to play better. But think about how much time he's missed rehabbing this offseason. I know he's back playing, but he didn't have a normal offseason like everybody else did. And I just feel like he's trying to find his way back into a groove, and I think he'll get there, but he's got to be better. He can't turn the ball over. Like, I think he had 9 turnovers in 2 games, but no, you're right about Vescovi. He kind of opened up there in that Kansas game.
But also the thing with Ziegler is, my man's about 7.5 months post ACL tear, not surgery, post tear, right. Which I understand nowadays it's about a 6 to 8 month recovery. It's not like it used to be when it was a year long, like an Achilles. But I mean, after having a major injury like that, a lot of guys don't get the confidence that they had before, and for the ones that do, the vast majority of them, it takes a good amount of time for them to, no pun intended, get their legs back under them, you know, like physically, mentally, like muscle memory type stuff when it comes to making plays and whatnot. So I'm not too worried about him just yet. If this continues kind of into January, February, I will be worried about him. But as of right now, there's no reason to worry about this basketball team. If you're working out kinks in late November, you're doing very well for yourself. And we have a couple more tough tests coming up before SEC play. This Wednesday, if you're listening to this on Monday or Tuesday, or even Wednesday, we're traveling to Chapel Hill, part of the ACC SEC Challenge. And North Carolina is pretty good. I watched the whole game when they played Northern Iowa. And that first half, I was like, my God, North Carolina's dog shit. And then second half rolled around and they beat them like a drum. I was like, okay, North Carolina's pretty good. And then they lost in overtime to Villanova. And Villanova's not ranked, but I do think Villanova is pretty underrated this year. I think they're in the same boat as UCLA. They lost quite a bit, so people kind of aren't really giving them much attention, but it's still UCLA and Villanova. So, and also it's, I mean, sound like a broken record, but it's November. I mean, you can't hold losses like this against teams. North Carolina is still a very solid team. They've got shooters. That white boy, Cormac Ryan, I believe is his name. He's Notre Dame transfer. He's got a ratchet on him. I forgot the other guy's name, number 55. When he gets hot, watch out. You know, he's going to drop 2, 3, 4 in a row on you. We've got our hands full. We've got our hands full for sure. But I absolutely love playing this much good competition early in the season. From a flat out viewer standpoint, for one, but also it's a great barometer. Well, once you get into the meat of your schedule, and this isn't like 10 or 15 years ago when you have like 6 weeks where you actually have some competition. Like the meat of your schedule is pretty much all year nowadays for top teams, and it's awesome that we're a part of that.
I'm laughing because you said meat twice.
Maybe I
I
got
don't know
it.
Sad.
Sad. Maybe I'm a hater.
Maybe. So I found this from at One Fly We All Fly on X or Twitter. He said, here is Vols' best lineups in terms of offense and defense efficiency per Evan Maya, which is kind of like a Ken Palm site. Best offensive lineup. Now, you're going to like this at the end. Maybe I sent this to y'all. I can't remember. Best offensive lineup: Meshack, Gainey, Dalton Connect, Triple J, and Estrella. Sorry, not Australia. That's a country. Australia. Best defensive lineup: Ziegler, Gainey, Dalton Connect, Triple J, Estrella. Estrella is in Tennessee's best offensive and defensive lineup. I found that to be very interesting as the season goes forward. I think you might see him get more and more playing time if things work out the way they are. But somebody I was talking to the other day basically said Ziegler needs to sit on the bench until he gets his head straight. This says otherwise, that they need him out on the court. And that's what I was trying to say. He's got to be on the court. He can't turn the ball over 9 times in 2 games. He just can't. Point guards cannot do that. You want to be successful in any level of basketball, your point guard cannot turn the basketball over 6 times in one game and 3 times in another. You just can't do it. Can't happen. He's got to be better. He's got to find a way to shoot a little bit better, but it'll come. His defense is there. He's still playing elite defense. The offense will come, I think. He's got to be patient with him, but he does need to be better for this team to be successful. That's not a lie. But I'm, like you said, I'm not worried about anything that happened. And if you are, it's sad and unfair that you're, freaking out over 3 games in November. Well, 2 games really. It's not a normal circumstance. So like you said, Tennessee's got a big game this coming Wednesday at North Carolina in the SEC ACC Challenge. First year of that. Be cool to see the Vols back in Chapel Hill for the first time since, I believe, 2014. Because we played them here in 2015.
Oh, your timeline's off. It was 17 and 18. Bowden was on the team. That's why I remember it. It was either 16 and 17 or 17 and 18. No, it wasn't. Yeah, it was 17 and 18 when the first year we went to Chapel Hill, and that was the first year where we weren't very good. And then when they came here, we checkered Thompson-Boling, and that was the first year that we were pretty good under that regime.
I believe Tennessee is 2-10 all time against North Carolina.
I'd like us to play them more often.
We should. I mean, we're right next door to them.
Right. I think we could establish a rivalry with them.
We are 2-10. Okay, here's the history. We last played them in 2021. We beat them 89-72. I'm not real sure where this was. Connecticut? I don't remember that.
Oh, that was in one of those Thanksgiving tournaments.
That's right. That's correct. Let's see. 2017-18, we played them in Knoxville, lost 73-78. 2016, we played them in Chapel Hill, lost 71-73, so 2 close games there. Before that, it was all the way back to 2006, and we played them in New York City. And then we played them in Maui in 04-05, lost both of those matchups. So the previous win, except for 2021, the last time we beat North Carolina was in Knoxville in 1948. Or sorry, January 31st, 1949. Tennessee beat the Tar Heels 84-56. And that was probably at Alumni Hall. Or sorry, not Alumni Hall, Alumni Memorial Gymnasium. Alumni Hall is a store. That is the only 2 wins in school history against North Carolina, 1949 and 2021. So maybe we can get win number 3 on Wednesday night. If we don't, then listener to the show, Nicole Doty, I will not speak to you. She's a big Tar Heels fan.
Will she make the list?
She might make the list.
The list.
I couldn't put Nicole on the list. I got to see Nicole yesterday in the box. I hadn't seen her in over a year. Her and her husband John were there, listeners of the show. Shout out. So they were up there. I got to see them for about 10 minutes. But good to see listeners of the show out and about. They are real. People do listen. I actually saw Preston Cunningham, a guy I played baseball with his son, Matt, one of the owners of the Hackers Club on Instagram. If you don't follow them, check them out. They run a cool tournament every year in the summer. But his dad walked through and said, "Hey, listen to the podcast." So Preston, if you're listening, thanks for listening. So we do have listeners out there, Harbin.
We do. They're real. We do not spam our listens. Our numbers are real.
Yes.
It would be quite embarrassing if we faked our numbers to get them where they are. But we have a solid base following, and we appreciate every single one of y'all.
Absolutely. Hater and loser of the week, Harbin. You got one?
No. Do you have one?
Well, I mean, we always say there's candidates every week.
Well, yes, there's a ton of candidates, but I haven't decided which one I'm going with.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of dumb people out there. I wanted to kind of list Vandy as my hater and loser just because they're losers. But that's too easy. That's like picking Joe Biden as your hater and loser of the week. That's low hanging fruit.
It's also true.
I don't know. There's a guy on Twitter I got in an argument with. He was calling people poor because they don't sit in the Tennessee Terrace section. And he was blasting other Tennessee fans for being not sitting there, not being capable of sitting there. I thought that was pretty low. Maybe he should be my hater and loser of the week. Let's look him up.
Look him up. Let's do it.
What? Let's see. Who is this guy that told me I was poor? His Twitter name is Crass Bandicoot at Crass BR549. Little Andy Griffith shout out there. Quarterback. Here's his tweet. This is what got me fired up. Quarterback roster decisions tomorrow. This is for the game Saturday. Determine if we renew our Terrace tickets for next year. Same goes for my father-in-law, who has held 8 seats in the Terrace for decades. I responded, I hope they play the one you don't want, so seats open up. Would love to move over there. He responds, $3.5K per year, and you can be there too. And this is not a lie. I responded to him, there's a wait list. He said, no shit, stop being poor. And he also had back and forth with other fans, calling them poor. I said, this was probably a little low for me. Who's poor? It ain't me. I'm not a Kentucky fan. That's my hater and loser of the week.
All right. I'm gonna get slightly contentious here. I don't want to do this because I am a major fan of this guy.
But you have to do it now.
I do.
I don't know who it is, but you have to do it.
And this is potentially the media's fault, which it's always their fault.
Yes, everything's the media's fault.
But my hater and loser is the quarterback for the Buffalo Bills, Mr. Josh Allen.
Really?
It is. I'll tell you why. He has been the media's darling ever since his rookie year. And rightfully so. I'm a huge fan of the guy. But he leads the league in turnovers by a comfortable margin since coming into the league in 2018. And let me ask you something, Nice. What has he won?
Not much. He's won some games in the regular season. That's about it.
The only award that he has is he lost a very, very entertaining overtime game to the Kansas City Chiefs. And they changed the rule because of it. Cool. Okay. Well, when he goes out there and he has 2 interceptions and a fumble, the media says, "Oh, he left it all out on the field. He wears his heart on his sleeve." But then you have guys like, say, I don't know, Dak Prescott, who, by the way, is nowhere near the top 10 in total turnovers for quarterbacks this year. But if you listen to MSESPN, you will not know that. But he has 1 interception in the fourth quarter after throwing for 340 yards and 4 touchdowns. Is Dak the guy? Do the Cowboys need to move on? Cowboys won't ever win anything with Dak. I think it's time that we just need to be fair. And also, here's another one. Jalen Hurts, which he's always a hater and loser because he plays for the Philadelphia Eagles and he attended the University of Alabama. He is the front runner for MVP this year. And he has thrown for, we'll call it 2,700 yards passing. And they've played 11 games. So do the math. He has a measly 18 touchdown passes to 10 interceptions, along with a handful of fumbles. But Harb, he has all these rushing touchdowns. He had his first rushing touchdown of the year that he didn't have 2 grown men pushing on his backside. And it won him the game. I'll give him credit. But we need to start holding every single high-profile quarterback accountable when they're turnover machines. But my quarterback, I'm not always proud of it, but he's my quarterback. Dak Prescott has 2,935 passing yards for 23 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. And his passer rating is 10 points higher than both Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen's. He's got the Cowboys sitting at 8-3. And you haven't heard a single word about it. They're just waiting on him to throw 1 pick in a primetime game where they lose by 3 and it's not even his fault. So Stephen A. Smith can put out a laughing video and blast him for 3 days while his quarterback's Tommy DeVito. I'm sick and tired of the biasness, Nice.
I understand. I will say, I heard this I was watching the Eagles and Bills game this afternoon. I looked it up to confirm it. Josh Allen, he threw a pick today, so he's up to 13 interceptions this year, but he has 33 total touchdowns. I think that's pretty incredible. He's got 24 passing and 9 rushing touchdowns this season. But you're right, he is a turnover machine. He's not why they lost today, but
I'm not saying he lost the game, but the facts are facts, and the Bills are 6-6.
Yeah, they're in trouble.
They're just not very good this year. Now you can say their receiving core is not that great, the run game is not that great. You can say all those things, but in their 6 losses, they lost to the Jets in overtime, first game of the year. Okay. In that game, Josh Allen, 3 interceptions. You lose a game by 6 points, you have 3 interceptions, that's your fault. Their next loss of the year, 25-20 against the Jaguars, another 1-score game. where he had a pick and a fumble. The next loss of the year, they lost to the Patriots. The Patriots are probably the worst team in football, by the way. Had another pick in that game, in a one-score game. You lose to the Bengals, only putting up 18 points. You got another interception in that game. You lose to the damn Broncos, which Broncos are hot now, but when they lost, that was a bad loss. And my man's had 177 yards and 2 interceptions in that game. If that was Dak Prescott, they would be trying to hang him publicly outside of ESPN's headquarters.
You're not wrong. So is your hater and loser of the week Josh Allen or the media?
I guess it's both. I mean, it's always the media's fault. Because I love Josh Allen. Don't get me wrong. Like, he's top 3 favorite player in the NFL for me. I love that guy. But we got to start holding everybody accountable equally. So I guess technically it's the media, but Josh Allen is the figurehead of this topic. And they've started talking about him a little bit. I'll give him a little bit of credit. Also, the Eagles are frauds. I'm not scared of them.
It's going to be great coming down because the Cowboys are playing well. Eagles are the Eagles. Be great to see those two teams battling it out 1 or 2 more times this year, probably. But Dak Prescott's playing really well right now too. So, but you're right. The media probably is just waiting, licking their chops.
Yeah,
for that big turnover to happen at the wrong time.
Right, and I'm listen. Like I
They're
am.
kind of like the Rick Barnes haters. They're just waiting.
Yeah, of course. And I'm not like most Cowboys fans. I know when people hear Cowboys, their ears start bleeding. I'm a very realistic Cowboys fan, okay? I know we're going to get to the divisional round and lose in a hilarious fashion. That's what we do. But judging by the numbers, as of right now, Dak Prescott is having a season where he is definitely in the MVP conversation. I'm not saying he's the front runner, but he's having arguably the best year of his career besides his first 2 years in the league. I mean, he looks great. And CeeDee Lamb's clicking. Brandon Cooks is finally starting to show up. I just wish we'd get rid of Michael Gallup. Looking pretty good. I do say we need to beat somebody that can actually play because all of our I think our best win is the Chargers.
Yeah.
So, but our schedule's backloaded, and I think that'll be pretty good. Getting us war ready for playoff time.
They put it to the Redskins on Thursday on Thanksgiving, and Dolly performed at halftime in a Cowboys cheerleader outfit. Much better performance than she gave at Neyland because nobody could hear her. That wasn't her fault, but we couldn't hear her at Neyland Stadium a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, Cowboys playing good right now. So that's our haters and losers of the week. Was just looking, Harbin. We got no Q&As, no questions left this week. So if you listen on Spotify, I'm going to put up a question this week. What letter grade would you rate the Vols this season? So be on the lookout for that. Also, Harbin, a few weeks ago, I don't know if I told you this or not, but Mama Harb left us a message on the YouTube channel, and she said, what have I got to do to get a koozie? I guess I need to give you one to give to her.
All she's got to do is ask her son. She ain't even asked.
She asked the YouTube channel. She didn't even ask her own son. So sad and unfair. But yeah, leave us a question on Spotify. You can also comment on YouTube channel. We have a few comments here or there that I try to respond to when we can. Day-Day's trying to get me to do YouTube shorts. I got to look at that and figure that out. Not sure what that is, but apparently his son does it, playing video games, and gets tons of views. And Dane has more subscribers than we do, Harbin. That is sad. But shout out to Dane. Good for you.
I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. Dane is cooler than all 4 of us put together.
You know how many followers he has? Subscribers?
I don't know.
Day sent it to 69.
Nice.
Good going, Dane. Good going. All right. Well, Harbin and I are beat. It was a long day yesterday. I had a long day today cleaning out the box, driving to Cott County, back to Straw Plains. I drove from Straw Plains to Knoxville, Cott County back to Straw Plains. So a lot of driving today, but appreciate everybody listening. Appreciate everybody coming out to the tailgates this year. If you listened and came by, appreciate it. We had a blast. Not sure that I'm going to a bowl game or anybody else is. That's kind of up in the air at this point. If we do, we'll let you know. We'll have a tailgate or at least hang out prior to the game down there if we go, but don't know about that. But we'll have more about bowl season coming up, basketball, over the next few weeks. So a lot to tide you over until the first of the year, until SEC basketball starts. But appreciate everybody listening. Remember, you can get us wherever you get your podcast. Main places that people listen to us are on Apple and Spotify and on the YouTube. Harbin, I'm going to bed. Good to see you again. CM Punk is back. It's clobbering time. Randy Orton's back. RKO's out of nowhere. Raw should be good from Nashville on Monday night. So watch that. But appreciate everybody.
Raw's going to be a banger.
It is. 3 hours. Tune in. Appreciate everybody listening. We'll see you guys next time on the Section YY8 podcast.